So at my library job, if a book is really damaged, like general wear and tear, something like that, it is what we call CFD, consider for deletion. The Necronomicon Ex Mortis, it wouldn't even be that. It would just be chuck it in the bin. Hello everyone, my name is Ryan Cam. With Evil Dead Rise coming to theaters this coming weekend, I have some unfinished business with this franchise, and so I'm here to review both Army of Darkness and the Evil Dead remake that we got in 2013. Now, I do plan on making these Scary Mania episodes down the line, so if anyone was curious, yes, I will be covering those. I'll be covering these movies again at a later date, but for right now, since, well, we're getting an Evil Dead movie this coming weekend, the opportunity just presented itself, so here I am. If you want to hear me talk about the remake, there's going to be a time code in the description. You can skip just to that. However, if you want to hear me talk about Army of Darkness, well, you're in the right spot because the review starts right now. Army of Darkness was directed by Sam Raimi. It was released in 1992, and this is the third in the mainline Evil Dead trilogy. In the ending of Evil Dead 2, Ash gets sucked through a time vortex and ends up in medieval times. I swear this is the greatest series ever. Because he has a shotgun and a chainsaw, he's basically far more advanced for medieval times than what you would expect. And, well, he helps a kingdom fight off a whole lot of Deadites. It almost seems like this movie is destined to be something completely different from what we ended up getting with the rest of the Evil Dead movies, because the Evil Dead, Evil Dead 2, and even the remake have a very simple playbook. Have a bunch of people trapped in a confined space, stuck with the Necronomicon Ex Mortis and all the evil that it provides. This is the only movie that strays beyond that formula. Ash being in the medieval times, yeah, that'll outdo it, I guess. Up until fairly recently, when I had to watch this to do a video over on Jake Collins's channel, I had never seen Army of Darkness, but I had heard nothing but good things, and as a matter of fact, some people consider it their favorite of the trilogy. So I was definitely curious, and I can definitely see why, because this movie is bonkers and I love it. In my research, I found that Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell kind of wanted to do this movie from the very beginning. They just didn't have the budget to do so. The reason Evil Dead 2 was made was kind of a stopgap, if you will, in between the Evil Dead and what they wanted to call the Medieval Dead. The Medieval Dead being a far cooler name than what we ended up getting. No offense to Army of Darkness, but the Evil Dead 2, and the Medieval Dead. I love the symmetry of that. Perfectly balanced, as all things should be. But no, at the behest of the producer for this series, Irvin Shapiro, the title was changed to Army of Darkness. Again, cool title, but I mean,
we were on the verge of greatness. We were this close.
Despite the fact that this movie is a part of a horror franchise, this is more of a horror comedy than anything. I'd argue this is the funniest movie of the series. And in my research, I found that among Sam Raimi's inspirations included The Three Stooges, Jason and the Argonauts, and A Connecticut Kid at King Arthur's Court, among others. And you can see that inspiration just shine like a diamond here, especially the Three Stooges part. There's a great little moment where Ash and other Ash heads eye poke each other. All you needed was a cream pie and the Three Stooges homage is complete. This is definitely, I would argue, the logical endpoint of Sam Raimi's immense creativity. Not only the eye poke stuff in the Three Stooges homage, but there's a scene straight out of Gulliver's Travels, another inspiration for this movie. And like I said, Jason and the Argonauts, this movie pretty much has, the Deadites are pretty much a 90s version of those bone guys that Jason fights off. This really is the Bruce Campbell show. He is the character that you definitely connect with the most. And while there is a king and a princess and among other characters, Ash Williams is front and center as he should be. And this is him at his most badass, I would argue. But kind of like what happens in Evil Dead 2, the badassness is balanced by just him kind of struggling in hilarious fashion. He's beatable, but he also can take care of himself. He's the most tempting piece on the game board to fight, but also the most dangerous, if that makes any sense at all. So much happens, so much crazy stuff bounces off the walls in less than 90 minutes. This movie is 81 minutes. It is a very quick watch, but it comes across so well. And I'd still argue Evil Dead 2 is my favorite of the series, but this is definitely a close second. This gets an amazing grade from me. The creativity on display is just unmatched, to the point where I don't think an Evil Dead movie will get this crazy ever again. It's a thing where the sun, the moon, the planets, and all the stars come together in perfect alignment to create a total package of horror, comedy, and just badassery. See it if you haven't. And then we have Evil Dead 2013. This was directed by Fede Alvarez, who would later go on to direct Don't Breathe, one of my favorite horror movies of the 2010s. And this is the remake of The Evil Dead that was released in 1981. And similar to the 81 version, it's about a group of friends who are going to a deserted cabin in the middle of the woods. See, one of their friends is basically trying to quit drugs cold turkey. And so they're staging an intervention slash kind of trying to help her as much as she can through this difficult situation. But one of the friends stumbles onto the Book of the Dead and reads it. And, well, blood, carnage, and just general chaos reign for about 90 minutes. I wasn't as plugged into the movie space as I am now in 2013, so it's a little tough to say what the reaction to this was, but I imagine, considering how many fans that this trilogy has, it probably wasn't great. But the reviews going in were largely positive, as some people saying it's just as good, and in some cases better than the original. So I was very much looking forward to it, and yeah, this movie is freaky. Despite it being a remake, this movie feels like it could be something totally original. It strikes the perfect balance of it being a loving tribute while also striking out on its own, setting a much darker tone, turning up the violence to about 11, and just generally being unpleasant at certain points, and not just like a horror kind of unpleasant, just a general like I cringed like more than once in this, and not just like a this is bad kind of cringe, but just like a I hope these people get out and get their limbs back kind of cringe. Because this was 2013, and well, CGI and horror movies to go together like peanut butter and jelly, or the opposite of that if the CGI is bad, you would expect something like this to be just a CGI fest. But in my research, I found out that Fede Alvarez went out of his way to make sure that practical effects were used about 90% of the time. He does say in an interview that CGI was used at points for touch-up purposes, but for the rest, it was all practical. And it really shows, because this movie is gruesome. This movie has a serious body count. There are a couple of scenes where I just was like watching it through my fingers. It was brutal. There is a scene where the girl who gets possessed gets a syringe and goes after this dude's eyes. He has his glasses, so the glasses stop it. But after the fight, he pulls out the end of the needle out of his eye. It's so gross. There's another scene where this girl is stuck in something and has to take a carving knife to her bicep and just goes at it with it. It just, it melted my brain so many times. But just the craft that went into it, and just the ability just to know that makeup and actual effort beyond just editing it in Photoshop or something to that degree, that I give nothing but credit to Fede Alvarez and the effects team for doing that. With that being said, though, the CGI is good, and there is definitely some of it in here you do notice. But I have a feeling it was the case of, we got to make this look good, and the only thing that can do it is a computer, so our hands are tied. So in that regard, I do appreciate it, but oh boy, the practical effects are genuinely chilling. And my one knock against the movie is that the characters aren't exactly memorable to a degree. Really, the only person that I cared about was the brother and the sister being the one who's trying to kick the drugs. And I feel like the rest were just kind of cannon fodder. But I guess following in the tradition of The Evil Dead, because honestly, who can you remember outside of Ash from that movie? I will wait. What gives the cast the edge in this one over The Evil Dead, in my opinion, is the fact that why they are going to this cabin. Because in The Evil Dead, they're all just going for a vacation. But here, because of the intervention / trying to help the girl get off the drugs thing, there's more tension there. And it also kind of blurs the lines of, okay, is she actually seeing these things? And she is, or is she just having a relapse? So it's handled really well. It's not like the characters are dumb, like, relapse, huh? Like, no, that doesn't happen. At the end of the day, dry characters aside, this is a more than worthy remake. It's in some ways better than the original, like I said. I'm going to give this an amazing grade. I would put this on par or even above the original, and I think it's my second favorite outside of Evil Dead 2. It's rare for a remake to do that, but Fede Alvarez really crushed it in making something that fits in the Evil Dead universe while also standing by itself. It's great. But I am so much looking forward to Evil Dead Rise. I am thinking that is going to be just... It's going to be crazy, and I am looking forward to seeing it. But I pass the question off to you. What is your favorite Evil Dead movie? The Evil Dead, Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, or Evil Dead the Remake? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to read what you have to say. And if you liked the video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel and click the bell to allow notifications. So when a new video drops, you'll be the first to know about it. My name is Ryan Cam, and I'll see you in the next one.